All right, everyone, we start off today talking about how big a disaster Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit really was. Of course, initially they wouldn't confirm or deny she was even going to stop over in Taiwan. She was touring parts of East Asia, enjoying some sushi or some kimchi. I'm sure that's a little bit too spicy for her. And enjoying some marzipan shit that she got from Emmanuel Macron, maybe, that she stashed away in the back of her plane. But she goes to Asia, stops over briefly in Taiwan. The Chinese immediately surround Taiwan with military exercises. Now, the idea that they were going to fire on Nancy Pelosi, they would consider it an act of war. You know, other dignitaries and shit have gone to Taiwan. Some of them, unlike Pelosi, have even mattered and delivered speeches that were coherent. The idea that that was going to pop off World War III was never really a thing. What it has done, though, has led to several major reprisals once she left. Number one, link in the description archive, of course. China has now suspended cooperation on numerous diplomatic efforts involving the U.S. By the way, did you see as well in separate news, the U.S. is taking part in joint military exercises along the Chinese disputed border in India right now? Yeah, this totally isn't warmongering at all. There's no problem here. This is perfectly fucking normal. Next, the top dude in the Taiwanese missile program was found dead in a hotel room in the last 24 hours. China clearly assassinated him, or, you know, he got the memo that you're going to die, or you're going to be tortured, so he just killed himself. Or he got Clintoned. Of course, you got to understand one thing about what's happening in Taiwan. Nancy Pelosi is not an enemy of China. The idea is she talks a big game, but all the companies that donate to her, all of her friends in Congress, all these people are part of the same globalistic economic framework. They are at most one or two steps removed from Beijing at any given time with regards to their livelihood. They don't want a war with China. Hell, they would give Taiwan to China right now if they could. They just don't have a methodology by which to do so. By giving a reason for China to act aggressive, it almost appears more like Nancy Pelosi is actually hoping that they invade so that the United States can do butt-fuck nothing. But after 24, preferably, of course. All you have to do is get some shit stirring over there, say, look, I visited Taiwan, I was the first major member of a delegation to go there in 25 years, which is sort of kind of true, to be honest. We stand with Taiwan. Well, we didn't see this coming. But that's down the road to, you know, unite all of one mother China, because communism is very good for business if you happen to be a multi-billionaire or at least really, really wealthy and powerful like Nancy Pelosi. But it's a situation in which they're not really standing with Taiwan in the first place. They just wanted a foreign policy win before the midterms because Biden doesn't have anything else. This is also why the reconciliation bill, and I can't imagine, why are all of these self-professedly intelligent liberals wondering exactly why it's just a little bit more than 6 months since till the midterms that the reconciliation bill enters the table? Is it because inflation takes 6 months or a little bit more to show up? They're being hoodwinked into paying hundreds of billions in taxpayer dollars to double the size of the fucking IRS right now. So I think that these people have some issues. Taiwan was entirely symbolic, and it's an unmitigated disaster within foreign policy. But they got to have fluffy pictures of Nancy Pelosi bravely standing up against the Chinese. Oh, those Chinese bullies didn't want me to visit, but me, a feeble 80-some-odd-year-old woman who clearly is out to lunch half the time and probably on dementia medication, much like my boss Joe Biden, I stood in the gap and I said that we would stand with the Taiwanese people and their proud heritage and all this other horse shit that you have to say with an Asian diplomacy. Hell, at least she didn't do as bad as Biden would have done. Just to be clear, he probably would have started urinating on a statue or something at some point, saying, oh, come on, Jack, if you don't like it, it'll take you out behind the woodshed. I remember the Korean War. Wait, we're not in Korea? Well, you're basically the same. That's how Biden would operate. Nancy Pelosi managed to at least, not fill her Depends undergarments in the presence of a foreign prime minister. But it means nothing. Meanwhile, back at home, and the liberal media basically ignored this, when queried on the same exact subject, hey, do we recognize the sovereignty of the people of Taiwan? No, we don't. No, there's one China and Beijing runs it all, but we're still going to stand with this with Taiwan. Why? Can I please ask something? If the United States does not even believe that Taiwan is a sovereign entity, so you recognize Beijing as the legitimate communistic leader of all of China, and of everything else around it, because China is highly imperialistic. So they also, I guess they run Somalia and Kenya and a few other nations now too, Sri Lanka. If you recognize that, then, and they consider Taiwan to be in active rebellion, why are we arming them? Why are we doing that? You're making all sorts of money off China. You claim over and over, we're not hostile towards China, we're just competitors. We really, really want a rapprochement. We really, really want to do business and diplomacy and normalize everything. Oh, yeah. No, communism's not good, but if it's in China, it's okay. This is the boomer mentality, by the way. Every bit of communism must be stamped out, except for the one that's making us lots and lots of money. This is boomerism 101, basically, in the socioeconomic and diplomatic senses. Why, though, would we be arming Taiwan? Why are we giving them missiles and guns and things like that? I've got a better solution, by the way. It's one that would actually deter China. Encourage a Second Amendment style system in Taiwan and allow guns to be shipped there. Allow every civilian to have a martial population, not just mandatory military training for the youth, which they already have. That's fine. China has it too. You're woefully outnumbered by the Chinese. Knowing Kung Fu is not going to save you if you get invaded. You know what will? Pew pew. Because they don't have enough of a naval capability to land enough troops at one time to overwhelm millions and millions of people that happen to be armed with their own private arms. Militarize the population Switzerland style. Make it mandatory. Make sure that you have a good bunker system set up. That will do you better than buying some Stinger missiles, in all honesty. But the whole thing is that while China would like to directly control Taiwan, they've managed to absorb some of their other satellite states recently. While they would love to do this, they're patient. They're being very patient. They're going to tolerate the fact that Pelosi effectively used a visit that accomplished nothing as a photo op, because then they benefit too. They get to kill the top missile scientist in all of Taiwan, and they'll get away with it. They get to conduct joint exercises, and Eastern Bloc and non-aligned countries won't blame them, because they will see her visit as a military provocation. Of course, she's got a fighter escort and all these things, so all of a sudden they start doing live fire drills, intimidating the Taiwanese people. They were only able to launch off these things because of Pelosi's presence. If they had started drilling at 7-8 different locations around Taiwan, deliberately buzzing radar systems and ignoring air-to-air calls, and clearly engaging in war games that are designed as a strategy for an eventual landing on Taiwan at large. If they were to do that out of the blue, it would be seen as aggressive. Well, the non-aligned part of the world, which is still relatively large, wouldn't side with them. They'd say, I don't understand what you're doing. Are you planning to invade sometime soon? There was nothing diplomatic that triggered it, so maybe Iran calls for calm, in other words. But if Nancy Pelosi goes there, and it's a denial of U.S. doctrine, even though it was counter-denied in the United States contemporary to Pelosi being there by the White House itself. No. There's only one China. Taiwan we don't recognize as a sovereign nation. We act as though it's sovereign. We sell them weapons. We say that we will defend them if they're invaded. We don't even recognize them as a nation. It's complete phony fucking baloney. This was a diplomatic disaster. It was a goddamn floor show. And if China were to invade Taiwan tomorrow, I don't think that DC would do anything. I would also like to point out, maybe it's not a great idea while you're already in a proxy war with Russia to also be antagonizing the other main nuclear power in the Eastern Bloc. Maybe that's not a good idea. I think the administration, if this weren't just total fluff, if this weren't just Nancy Pelosi dicking off to try to get a victory for Biden before the midterms and for the Dems in diplomacy in general before the midterms, then I'd be worried about World War III right now. Thankfully, I judge that it's just a floor show. And Beijing loves it. They're not actually mad that Pelosi went there. They got to conduct their war games. Yeah, a little bit more naval troop readiness for their mediocre Navy. I'm sure they're very, very happy. Now the United States can play cowboy along the border on the Indian side and pretend that there's a possibility that India is going to invade its other main economy within BRICS. That makes a lot of sense. That's about all. Peace out.